Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Purport. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he will be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend to Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. These words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on the original form of Godhead, Krishna. One should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayana, Rama, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge, and this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. It's very clear from this verse that the message of Bhagavad Gita, the core message of Bhagavad Gita, is that one should have pure devotion for Krishna. One should be a pure devotee of Krishna. It's very clear to us because Srila Prabhupada made it clear. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so clear. It's clear what Krishna said. Krishna knew what he was saying, and Arjuna understood it, and then after that, more or less, everyone misunderstood it, apart from the Vaishnava Acharyas. I remember reading an edition of Bhagavad Gita without any comments, an English translation, before I read Prabhupada's books. And read all the way through and hadn't got the faintest idea what about it's all about. But just at the end, the person put his only comment of the book, "May Lord Shri Krishna bless you." I thought, well, that's very nice. But I couldn't understand anything about it because the person who was translating it didn't understand anything about it, it would seem. So Prabhupada has very kindly revealed to us that pure devotion to Krishna is the essence of everything. There's nothing beyond this. So, this is what Krishna consciousness is all about. It means pure devotion. Always thinking of Krishna, being his devotee, being naturally inclined to bow down before him and worship him in all respects. So we want to have pure devotion. And bhaktistu bhagavad bhakta sangena parijayate. Bhakti comes about by association with pure devotees. Sadhu sangha sarva shastre koi lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoi. Even by very brief association with a pure devotee, one can achieve all perfection. So in bhakti, pure devotion is attractive. Actually, I say bhakti means pure devotion. There are so many attractions may be there. Joining the Hare Krishna movement, there may be attractions of big buildings and nice food and opportunity to travel all over the world, maybe. But the real attraction, the essence, is pure devotion to Krishna. Now, What is that pure devotion? I'm just thinking of a letter one of my disciples wrote to me a few months ago, saying that he's inspired by various leaders of Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. He's inspired by such and such Swami because he always helps the devotees there and keeps in contact with them. And then different persons, he said, and he's inspired by the pure devotion of such and such Swami. I was a little surprised. The others don't have pure devotion, only he has pure devotion. Others are just, I'm sure he was praising others, but he said, this one he looks after us, and this one something else, and this one is because of his pure devotion. So I thought about that a little bit, and undoubtedly the Swami in ISKCON who we're talking about is attracting many people and giving many people faith in the path of pure devotion and inspiration to follow that. And if we see him, he seems like what you might call a textbook pure devotee, something like that. What you might expect a pure devotee to be. That most of the time, and if you see any photo, or especially when he's leading kirtan or giving a class, he has a look of great absorption on his face, and when he speaks and gives lectures and when he sings in kirtan, there's a lot of feeling is there, and he's famous for speaking for hours non-stop, regularly on the pastimes of the Lord and His devotees. And he's always preaching about humility and good behavior, and he epitomizes that. And he has many followers who are well known for their good behavior, and many disciples who are themselves becoming well known for their good behavior and their preaching of Krishna consciousness and being sadhus. He's what you might call a real sadhu. So many people are attracted to that pure devotion. And he sings so many bhajans, Vaishnava bhajans, like this, very much attached to Vrindavan Dham. So, this pure devotion. But I'm just wondering, is that now the standard by which we have to measure pure devotee? Everyone, as much as we're like that, one is to be considered a pure devotee. I mean, if Prabhupada came now, would he be considered less of a pure devotee because he's not like that so much? If is someone who doesn't speak for hours on the pastimes of the Lord, but might generally speak on more basic topics, does that mean they're less of a pure devotee? Someone who's very, Prabhupada was very cutting. He really cut people's false ego. He was what we might call the typical sadhu, was very encouraging and nice and very friendly, which is nice. We like people to be nice. And Prabhupada also, of course, he was nice, but quite often his niceness was in being extremely heavy, and he was very heavy on pretty much everything, on Mayavadis, on not cleaning the floor properly and everything. Prabhupada was very strong. So is that less of pure devotion. If someone tries to emulate Prabhupada or follow that example, is that also not pure devotion? The point I'm making here is that what is the standard of pure devotion? How do we define that? There are so many pure devotees in the history of India. Mirabai is considered a pure devotee, although I have my doubts, because her songs are all about me and Krishna. There's nothing about how we'll serve the devotees and Radha Krishna together. It's Krishna I will enjoy with Krishna. So it's more like Chandravali Bhav than the Rupanuga Bhav. And people in India, even they think Kabir is a great devotee, even though he's a great offender. Kabir. You're living in North India, you never heard of Kabir. Well, you're lucky. He's said to be something like a Ramanandi. And Ramanandis, they're also thought to be pure devotees or devotees, but these are ancient or old times. So Ramanandis, they're all, they chant Ram Nam over and over. And they're also often very well behaved and this and that. But ultimately they're Mayavadis. If you speak with them with a philosophy, then their great Ram Bhakti ends with them merging into the light which Ram comes from. So, our recent pure devotees, our recent acharyas, Prabhupada, very nice, yes, but very strong also. Cutting can be, Prabhupada said, chopping technique. Prabhupada was in Japan, as Burijan Prabhu was describing. He came to some meeting that some Hindus had organized, some local Hindus there, and they put Prabhupada on a big Vyasasana and he spoke, and then they brought their own Swami to speak. And they came and they looked at Prabhupada as if to tell him to get off the Vyasasana, and Prabhupada didn't. He just sat there, so the other Swami had to sit below him. So the Swami was speaking in Hindi and his Western disciples couldn't understand. Prabhupada was just sitting there with his eyes closed. And after, he went on and on and on, but after about 15 or 20 minutes, Prabhupada just opened his eyes and said to his disciples, "Stop him!" And then they all just started chanting kirtan so loudly. And the man who organized the program, he was saying he was going to donate this big hotel for a temple. Then after that, he didn't want to donate it. So, that was Prabhupada. "I am God," someone stood up and said. Prabhupada said back to him, "You are not God, you are a dog." So, very strong. There was one in Hyderabad at the farm, they used to distribute prasad at night, and the next morning Prabhupada saw it wasn't cleaned up. So he said, "Why is this not cleaned up?" And then one devotee got out his penknife and there was the dried dal and it started scraping it, and Prabhupada looked at him with disgust and said, "Better you use it to cut your throat." That was Prabhupada. Like that. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also said it. He said the sadhu, he has this sacrificial knife to cut, just like the goat in the sacrifice. He has the sacrificial knife of his harsh words. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he wasn't nice at all. People came to him for blessings and he would say, "Why, you want me to go to hell? You want me to be your debtor?" People tried to touch his feet and he'd curse that you and all your family for 14 generations will go to hell. So he wasn't nice. He wasn't what you'd call us. How could you know these people are pure devotees from there? They don't seem to be like pure devotees. One man came to see Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. He was crying so much that he could hardly walk. He had one person under each shoulder to support him, otherwise he'd collapse from the ecstasy. And they brought him to see Gorky Shordas Babaji Maharaj, because they thought, the meeting of two great sadhus, and Babaji Maharaj said, sorry, I'm busy now, and I can't meet him now. And he just refused to meet him. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told about Gorky Shordas Babaji Maharaj. He once asked Babaji Maharaj, there are so many well-known sadhus and babas in Vrindavan, aren't they good devotees? And Babaji Maharaj said they're all bogus. That was his summary of them all. So who's to know who's a pure devotee? Is it by good behavior or sweetness, bhav? Certainly, all these things. But it might not be according to some stereotype that we might expect. If someone has these qualities, that's very good. But at least in our recent acharyas, we've seen that those qualities have been expressed often in a manner that may seem to ordinary judgment may seem unusual. There's another Rissa in our ISKCON party. There's a propaganda going around that after Prabhupada there's one more guru, and then after him no more gurus. So he was a pure devotee, and there are no more pure devotees. So he spoke, this Maharaj who passed away, he spoke a lot about higher levels of bhakti. He spoke a lot about prem. He also spoke very heavily about material attachments and giving them up. It was very heavy, actually. People don't remember that somehow. They just remember the prem side. He used to speak a lot about prem, and he used to speak a lot about you have to have a guru who's got prem, who has captured Krishna in his heart. I remember one devotee telling me that he was uninitiated, and this Maharaj was telling him, you have to have a pure devotee guru, you have to have one who's got Krishna prem. And then he asked him, so who is that person? And then from behind, all his disciples were pointing at that Maharaj. So it seemed like, that you have to go to someone who's got prem, and I've got prem, or something like that. At least it was taken like that. But from our Vaishnava understanding, it seems that one who says I've got prem, he probably doesn't have prem. It's easy to talk about it, but we find that Prabhupada, and especially I'm seeing about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he didn't speak so much about prem and how you have to get prem, as he emphasized on the service attitude and the surrender, which is the basis of prem, without which there's no prem. And if you imbibe that service mood and surrendered attitude, then automatically prem will develop from that. And without that, you can talk about prem all day and night, and there'll never be any prem. So that's what he used to talk about a lot. And this one Maharaja was talking about used to speak a lot about how you have to get the right guru, and this always emphasize you have to get the right guru. So I suppose it's natural that his disciples, now that he's passed away, say there are no other gurus in ISKCON. But I would think that it's better to emphasize on how you yourself should be sincere, and then Krishna will look after you. That's the process, isn't it? Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagyavanji Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Latapi. You get it? If you're fortunate enough, then by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, you get the seed of devotion. So the seed is planted. What is that? Krishna Jadi Kripa Karen Kono Bhagyavane. What's the next line? If Krishna is merciful to someone, he's very fortunate, then can't remember the next line. And it says that he sends the guru, he sends someone to guide them. So the emphasis, it would seem that the emphasis is on being more, that we ourselves should be sincere to understand and surrender to Krishna. And then Krishna will send. Krishna will arrange that we'll get the proper kind of guidance. There's some website of the disciple of one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, and his website is called purebhakti.com. And he himself speaks a lot about the higher levels of Krishna consciousness. Recently brought out a commentary on Gita Govinda, even though it's well known that Bhaktivinoda Thakur told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur not to. So on the very highest levels, and he says that, at least in the past, he used to say that distributing books, Prabhupada emphasized it so much, but it's only karma yoga, and real bhakti means to be absorbed in the higher levels. So it seems there are different ideas about what pure devotion is. Is pure bhakti that you should always talk about the very highest levels of Gopi Prem? Maybe Hanuman wasn't a pure devotee by that standard. Because he didn't speak about Gopi Prem. He was... So, what is pure devotion? What is the standard? Well, here's the standard. One should always think of Krishna, be his devotee, surrender to him, worship him. One should be 24 hours a day absorbed in Krishna consciousness. It's we can't judge what is praying. Krishna knows. There are indications given in Shastra of someone of what are the symptoms of a pure devotee, but it might be very difficult to say exactly. Just like we see, people think that Kabir was a great devotee. People think that Mahatma Gandhi was a great devotee. You hear that, right? Yeah? I mean, it's about as far away from devotion as you could get. He wrote in his autobiography, "I do not believe that any such person as Krishna existed." And the rascal is speaking on Bhagavad Gita every night, and he doesn't even believe that Krishna existed. And people think he's a great devotee and he's God. He's an avatar. You don't find many people nowadays. When I was first in India, it used to be quite common. Mahatma Gandhi's picture was there on the altar. But now they got more modern batch of gods nowadays. So they kind of forget. Each generation there's a new batch of avatars. So just like this fart of living guy, Shavi Ranka or whatever his name. Yeah, he's going to be forgotten in a few years. But he's a shooting star. You know, I'm sorry, every time I mention, I'm just so peed off with this guy. I hate the rascal. This thing, I can't remember how many avatars I took. I can suggest a good use of a bullet, if anyone. Anyway, such a rascal. There are so many of them. But anyway, just like you were saying, you were pointing out there's some rascal Mayavadi. He died recently in Tamil Nadu. But there are so many. He'll go and there'll be some more. There are so many. People want to be cheated, so there are so many cheaters. So, what is the standard? How are we to understand? Well, a pure devotee, what is the center of pure devotion? Well, the Siddhanta should be correct. And the behavior. One should speak according to Shastra and act according to Shastra. These are the basic requirements. If one is not doing that, then certainly one is nowhere even approaching pure devotion. That's how we can say with surety that Mahatma Gandhi wasn't a pure devotee. It may be more difficult when you get to those who are doing and saying many of the things that our acharyas do, just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. They rejected so many Babajis and Kas Goswamis. In many ways their Siddhanta may have been correct, and in many cases even their behavior may have been according to Shastra, but they had some misconceptions, just like only a Brahmana can be a guru, or they were giving this Siddha Pranali, the meditation. Someone would walk up to them and just spit the pan out of his mouth and then go for initiation, and they would tell him, well, you are such and such a gopi, and it's ridiculous. So, but in many ways they're very close to the standard, or they believe that they're following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we follow our Mahajans, Mahajano Yena Gata Sapanta, not dogmatically. Not dogmatically means that they didn't just say, well, I'm a pure devotee and you should follow me. But they spoke the philosophy so that we could understand it, and that they acted on this platform themselves and showed this is the way to be a pure devotee. Prabhupada used to say, just do as I am doing. So what is the standard of pure devotion? Well, there are many pure devotees, and not everyone's the same. But basically they should speak according to Siddhanta, they should act according to Shastra, and a pure devotion means one doesn't just... Well, there are levels of pure devotion, but in its essence, or pure devotion means that one doesn't just speak according to Siddhanta or act according to Siddhanta, but one should of course be very sincere, not act in such a way to cheat others, to get a reputation of being a pure devotee. That's also possible. But one should actually have captured Krishna within one's heart. One should be a pure devotee in that sense. But then, again, who's to say? Prabhupada, he was very guarded. And he didn't he didn't reveal what his Siddha Swarup was. And even if people asked him, he became angry and wouldn't tell. And he was very reserved about speaking on very higher levels of bhakti, which he did, and he wrote about it, but he was very reserved in his presentation of it. Does that mean, are we to presume that he's actually not on such a high level of pure devotion? Well, you can think everyone's welcome to think what they like. It's a free world. Krishna's given us our marginal independence. Personally, I feel very safe with accepting Srila Prabhupada as my role model, the one whose example I would like to follow, with the faith that if we simply try to act in the manner that Prabhupada has prescribed for us. And again, it's not stereotyped. It's not that everyone just becomes a robot. But if we do that, then certainly Krishna will be merciful to us. Krishna will deliver us. So, when I saw this pure devotion, does that mean that someone who is not so, maybe, who's not like that, who doesn't behave very much in that way, does that mean they're not pure devotees? There's a hint of a misunderstanding there. If we say, this Swami is like this and this Swami is like that, I appreciate them all very much, but I appreciate this one's pure devotion. But others are not pure devotees? It's interesting though, because it shows that the principle of parampara is always there. That we tend to form our concepts according to our association. That's why they say that, there's this Ritvik theory that, let's go back to Orissa first of all. I mean, this idea that there's no guru, after Prabhupada there's one guru and then no more. And that theory is most prominent in Orissa. Why? Because that's where most of his followers are, and they preach that. And if you didn't hear that, you wouldn't think like that. So, actually they're becoming gurus by saying like that, because they're giving their understanding. So they're giving a unique teaching, so in that which you won't find anywhere else. Even the followers of that one whose website is purebhakti.com, even though that guru from Orissa said that, he again and again said everyone should stay in ISKCON, but most of his followers went over to purebhakti.com, who said that so-and-so Swami merged into me. And people believe that. So, I don't believe it. I mean, what does it mean anyway? But there's a lot of hype. Hype is a modern English term for hyperbole. It means advertisement. That someone is advertised. This is like this and this is like that. And he's so great and he's so wonderful. And he is the only way and the truth and the light, and no one goes to God but through him. So it's something like the fanatical Christians who say like that. Now again, this principle of parampara, that we tend to accept Krishna consciousness and our concepts of it according to our association. Now there's this Ritvik theory, and in Bangalore that's been much propagated. So, surprise, surprise, we find in Bangalore, more than other places, follower of the Ritvik theory, which actually proves the parampara system. Because it's only because there are people in Bangalore saying that so many people in Bangalore accept that. In other places it's not so prominent. Because someone came and told them that, therefore they believe it. So that's parampara. That's their rotten parampara. Because they said like that, and then people accept it. So it works by association. We tend to believe what we are presented with by living people. They say there's no guru after Prabhupada. He is the living guru. No one else is a living guru. But they are living gurus to their followers. And people believe what they say. So how are we to navigate our way through all of this? Well, we can see what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says. Siddhanta bolia chitte na karaha alash, eha hoite Krishna lage surira manash. Do not be lazy in trying to understand Siddhanta, what is the actual conclusion according to Shastra. For by doing so, one's mind becomes very strongly attached to Krishna. By Siddhanta. Siddhanta is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur rephrase this. Siddhanta alashjan anartha tocharana. One who is lazy in the matter of understanding Siddhanta. They cannot give up anarthas. They cannot cross beyond the primary stage of Krishna consciousness. They cannot give up their material attachments. So we find that our acharyas, they're very painstaking in presenting what is the Siddhanta of Krishna consciousness. And the Prakrita Sahajiyas, they used to blame Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He's a jnani, because he's always talking philosophy. He's not a pure devotee. He's not always speaking about intimate leelas, and he he doesn't collapse and faint and cry and warble. Actually, he did sometimes, but he didn't make a show of it. One time, in his room, he was just with a few devotees and a few guests there also, outside people. And suddenly he was talking philosophy, and all of a sudden his mind went towards some thought of Radharani, and he became overwhelmed with emotion and collapsed. And then he just went into his room, and he came back after some time and apologized. Prabhupada also, one time he was chanting. No, was it? Yeah. I was in Mayapur. He was giving a lecture. He was just speaking about philosophy, how we have to surrender to Krishna. And then he was talking very excited, and he said, just like the gopis, they never wanted anything from Krishna. And Prabhupada just stopped. He was suddenly overcome with emotion. In front of there was the Mayapur festival, thousands of devotees present. I was one of them. And just there was silence, and he went on and on and on. Prabhupada just sitting there, and no one knew what to do. It seemed like a long, long time. Maybe it was about 2 minutes, and then Hansaduta just started chanting Hare Krishna, and Prabhupada and that was the end of the class. Then afterwards, sometime later in the day, Prabhupada, one of the devotees mentioned to Prabhupada that, because some devotees were saying to Hansaduta, he shouldn't have started the kirtan and interrupted Prabhupada's ecstasy. They weren't sure what to do. What do you do? It doesn't say in Shastra what you should do when your guru becomes stunned in ecstasy in a public assembly. So Brahmananda said, well, what should we do? And Prabhupada apologetically said, well, I don't do that very often. He said, well, should we chant? He said, yeah, you can chant. So he didn't want to discuss it. So the tendency was to hide. Instead of publicizing, I am so great, or this person is so great, rather publicizing Krishna and speaking in a manner that is for the benefit of others. Now, I'm not saying that the persons I've spoken about today were not doing that, but I'm just saying that is what we take to be pure devotion is not necessarily the only standard of pure devotion. I mean, there is another standard where out of pure devotion for Krishna, the great devotees, they may speak on what appears to be very basic philosophy for the benefit of those who are hearing. They say, well, we have to speak on higher things now, but there are plenty of people who need to hear the basic things too. And even those who are eligible to hear the higher things, actually, if it is, it should be discussed privately. It's not meant for discussing publicly. So basically, if we speak the same way that Prabhupada did, that we can understand that, or on the level that he did in our basic classes, that will be beneficial for the world. That's not any less. That's not intrinsically any less pure devotion than speaking on so many other topics, which, and again, I'm not saying that these other devotees don't do, but they're more well known for other things which I mentioned. So I just wanted to discuss that, because it seems that what is pure devotion to Krishna, that's gradually within our, the understanding of that within our societies seems to be gradually being redefined, more according to the what you might call the traditional understanding of what a sadhu should be. Very soft, very gentle, and talking about leelas a lot and this and that, which, if someone's doing that, that's very nice, but it's not necessarily the standard. Actually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that the negative method is more, in a controversial age like Kali Yuga, the negative method of presenting the truth is more effective than the positive method. So, let us glorify all the Vaishnavas, but in doing so, in glorifying the Vaishnavas, let us not glorify one so much more than another that it becomes belittling of another, practically. And also in our glorification of Vaishnavas, we should be aware of what is Siddhanta also. It seems to me that in ISKCON we have the idea that we should just glorify everyone, the prominent leaders of our movement, whatever they do and whatever they say. And then anyone who's outside our movement, there's something wrong with them. Someone wrote to me recently and said that, well, this one, I have an ongoing disagreement with a certain godbrother of mine for acting clearly against the tenets of Shastra and of even human behavior. But someone wrote to me that, well, we shouldn't be so harsh on him because he's loyal to ISKCON. Wow. And he still gives good classes. But I don't think you should even give classes. You should first see your behavior. And he's loyal to ISKCON. But being loyal to ISKCON, that's all right. But you should also be, if you're just because you're a member of ISKCON and you have attained some higher position, and that shouldn't be a license just to speak any nonsense and behave in any manner that you like, and you can just get away with it because no one should speak any Vaishnava aparat. Anyway, I spoke on these things so much about 2 years ago, so when these issues were more hot. But these were the points that I was making, that if we don't address these issues, then it's going to come to the point where it becomes accepted that you can speak any nonsense and do any nonsense, and just as long as you remain within ISKCON, then everyone treats you as a pure devotee. And that's actually what I saw. Well, he's loyal to ISKCON. That's the qualification. But that's according to Shastra, that's not the qualification. One has to speak according to Siddhanta and act according to Sadachara as given in Shastra. Shruti Smriti Purana Adi Pancharatra Vidhin Vina Aikantiki Hare Bhakti Utpataya Kalpataya. What's the meaning of that verse? Do you know? Anyone know? Shruti Smriti Purana Adi Pancharatra Vidhin Vina Aikantiki Hare Bhakti Utpataya Kalpataya. You can say?
Bhakti, which is like only according to Vedas, Puranas, Mahabharata, that kind of bhakti doesn't give disturbance in the society.
Yeah. So-called bhakti that is executed without following Shastra is not actually bhakti, it's just a disturbance in society. Okay, any question about this? Yeah, alright. Go ahead.
In nectar of devotion that bhakti has two levels. One is sadhana bhakti and to raganuga bhakti.
Yeah, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and raganuga bhakti, which raganuga sadhana is also the...
And we see that how to understand it in our practical life in ISKCON. Do we practice this raganuga bhakti?
Do we practice raganuga bhakti? Well, everything in ISKCON is meant to be raganuga. There should be... Raganuga means we're... Actually, you should... If someone is developing to the higher sentiments, others shouldn't be able to see that, because life should go on as normal. It's an internal thing, it's not an external thing. It's not that you suddenly start announcing to everyone, well, I'm running in the fields with Krishna and Radha. It's an internal thing. And that arises automatically by chanting the holy names. Iha hoite sarva siddhi hoive shabha. By chanting, one becomes, by offenseless chanting, one gradually, and hearing those desires, or that awakens within the heart. So there's no real need to make a big issue of it, actually, because it springs automatically by the mercy of the holy name. And then when one is ready for that, then one will receive instructions accordingly. That arrangement will be there for that also. There's no need to... not only is there no need, but it's a mistake to think, now I have to endeavor for raganuga bhakti. You might... Do devotees practice in ISKCON? Well, you might ask, and they probably wouldn't tell you anyway. But anyway, everything is meant for raganuga. It's like we're following the rules and regulations, but to develop, even in the beginning stage, everything is meant for developing. It's bhav, the feelings. Hare Krishna Mahamantra Eto Shobhav Jai Jape Tar Krishna Upajai Bhav. It's the nature of chanting Hare Krishna, that one develops feeling for Krishna. So those things will develop in due course. But again, it's a very private thing.
And do devotees, how they come up and discuss some kind of...
Is there some kind of secret sangha?
No, but I mean, just like we usually see in Chaitanya Charitamrita and Acharya discussing confidentially.
Yeah.
The same thing practice today, or how it is?
It may be some.
Get some idea.
It may be some devotees are doing that. But again, it'll be a very private thing, and especially because of the tendency for that to be misused or misunderstood. Even in Chaitanya Charitamrita itself, it said it should be a private affair, so even more so at the present time. That is our desired goal, no doubt. But to be approached very carefully. Not at all artificial, never artificial. Artificially it won't work. What were you going to say?
I'm just wondering, how do we accommodate like devotees with the idea of pure devotee? I mean, having the idea, like you were mentioning Mirabai or someone else, or even others.
Do we accommodate? Why?
So, I mean, someone might appear like come to ISKCON and after some time develop attraction towards such things or something. So we don't.
Not if they're hearing properly.
Or others.
Usually they come with that. People come with that, and then you have to hammer it out. There may be some. In the West, there was someone who wanted to chant Hanuman Chalisa, which they come in contact with what we could say the broader Hindu culture. How do we deal with it? I give them Bhagavad Gita as it is. It's a good book. I remember there was some Bhaktin from South Africa wrote to Jayadvaita Swami, asked for his blessing so she could develop her love for Radharani. He wrote back and said, read Bhagavad Gita as it is 20 times. Realistic. I have a question.
You said that Prabhupada was dealing in preaching, Prabhupada used to do chopping technique. And I heard many times like devotees say Prabhupada said once that I can speak like that, you can't speak like that.
Yeah, I can speak like that, but you can't speak like that. There was an incident when Prabhupada went to the bank, the State Bank of India in New York, bringing one of his disciples, who was a young boy at that time, and he's probably 55 or 60 years old now. And Prabhupada, he was speaking very strongly to him. Then afterwards, Prabhupada, there's some bank dealing, and Prabhupada afterwards said to that devotee, I can speak like that, but you can't speak like that. And that this has been taken out of context to suggest that Prabhupada spoke strongly about philosophy, and no one else should, under any circumstances, ever do so. Although Prabhupada never told us that. He was talking about personal dealings. It says, what it is that people themselves, they don't like that, and they don't agree with it, and they want to be this kind of soft, loving, pseudo mushy, that's the word that, Kundali likes to use. That everything, they don't want it clear. If everything's very unclear, then you can get away. If there's darkness, then you can get away. In the dark, you can get away with crime. So those who don't want light, they don't like very clear light, they prefer the darkness. But Prabhupada is very clear. Personally, that's what attracted me very much to Prabhupada. He's very clear and straightforward, and no messing about. Clear delineation, what is the truth? As for this question, no one else should speak like this, well, the answer to that is in my book, My Memories of Prabhupada, on speaking strongly in Prabhupada's service, and over 100 quotes from, actually there's 132 quotes, including quotes from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, how a devotee must speak strongly. If we don't speak strongly, then we won't be convinced. If we don't state the fact, then we're stating the non-fact. Then what's the use? There's also consideration of time, place and circumstance. In the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that the truth should be spoken in the least equivocal manner, that means in the most straightforward manner, without consideration of time, place or circumstance. The message is important, not the time, the place or the circumstance.
The process of Siddha Pranali,
it's chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is Siddha Pranali. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after saying this, said, Kahilam e maha mantra iha japagiye sabe kariyane banda iha hoite sarva siddhi hoibe shobha. Everyone can get perfection by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. Later, after the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, some accepted Gauriya Vaishnava acharyas introduced the process of smara, by remembering the past. But that, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained, that what is that? Kirtan prabhave smarana hoibe. By the the strength that one gets from chanting, then smaran, or remembrance of the pastimes of Krishna, will come automatically. And that there's a lot in my upcoming book about this. While one is still infected with material desire, if one tries to artificially meditate on the intimate pastimes of Radha Krishna, it'll just be some mental concoction. That won't be Radha Krishna Leela.
How much we emphasize chanting of Gayatri? We chant, but we don't understand much. Basically, it's over our head. That mantra is very
the depths of it. Well, we have the Brahma Gayatri, and then we have the Guru Mantra, Guru Gayatri, Gaur Mantra, Gaur Gayatri, and Gopal Mantra, and Kama Gayatri. Well, that is our Well, that leads to our prayojan, Gopal Mantra. Krishna, Govinda, Gopijana Vallabh means Madan Mohan, Sambandha, Adidevata. Govinda is the Abhideya, Abhidevata, and then Gopijana Vallabha is Gopinath. So this way they lead us. Prayojan Tattva, or what is our aim, that we have to always keep in sight. It's not that we are aiming for Vaikuntha, or we're followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They may be Vaikuntha Vasis, or they may be Ayodhya Vasis, but mostly they're Vraja or Dwaraka Vasis, but mostly they're Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's aimed at Golok Bhakti. So that discussion should be there. It's not that it's banned. I was just telling that the other day, that previously some of the first books Prabhupada translated were Krishna book, Nectar of Devotion, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And when I joined, discussion of the topics, all the different sanchari bhavs, this was quite common in the classes. I remember, especially in London, the temple president, he mostly used to speak from Teachings of Lord Chaitanya about all these. It was quite common. But I think what happened after this, the Chaitanya Charitamrita came out, and then there was this Gopi Bhava club in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada he spoke so strongly about don't try to go up to a level that you're not fit for, and then after that, maybe there was, I don't really know what happened, because I came out to India shortly after that. But it seems that we became more cautious about all these things, and nowadays we're gradually, for the last many years, we've been opening up more to it. So it's definitely not that these things are banned. We should discuss these things. How to do so? In the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur again, that Pujala Raga Pata, we should worship the Raga Pat. We should, instead of jumping into the Ras Leela and here I am, folks, but rather we should worship that path. And also understanding that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha Krishna, and that by serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, that will automatically lead to what Anarpita Chiring Chirat Karunya Avatirno Kalo Samapyata Unatajvala Rasa Swapakti. By serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu within his mission, by attempting to help his servants to fulfill his manobhishta, his heart's desire of spreading Krishna consciousness throughout the world, then the result of that will be, as Prabodhananda Saraswati says in his Chaitanya Chandramritam, which will be a very good book to translate in all the Indian languages and distribute widely, by the way. When we get there, many things to do, that's one thing. Anyway, he says, Yata yata gaura padara vinde vindeta bhaktin krita punya rashi tata tatot sarpati hridya kasma radhapadam bhojas sudhena rashi. That when yata yata gaura padara vindeta bhaktin krita, Yeah, more or less it means that by development of bhakti for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, then automatically the bhakti for Radha floods one's own heart. So it's a natural progression. Again, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur very much emphasized this, that it's a natural progression. And Prabhupada said the same thing. You don't have to worry about it. It'll automatically develop. You go on with your service and automatically all these things will develop. He's chanting, discussing also. We have the books, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. We can discuss all these things.
If only Smarana was introduced.
Only what?
Only Smarana of Leela was introduced. This Siddha Pranali is recently introduced.
Siddha Pranali, was it recently introduced? Well, it was introduced in we could say 2 generations after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That was introduced by Dhyan Chandra Goswami. So he wrote a padati, or system for meditation. Well, actually, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Most famous is Krishnadas Kaviraj. Well, he wrote, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wrote Govinda Lilamrita, which described the 8-fold pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Then Dhyana Chandra Goswami, he wrote the Radha Krishna Dhyan Padati, something like that. The process of meditating on that. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur pointed out that all processes are namadheen. They're all dependent on chanting the holy names. You just can't sit down and meditate. You have to chant the holy names and serve the holy names. Otherwise it's not going to work. But he also, he didn't instruct him. He may have, there appears to be some indications that he may have instructed some of his disciples in some of these processes. But again, if he did so, it was very circumspect. Or he didn't. It wasn't a matter for public discussion. The problem is that as soon as you tell, and everyone wants, just like Prabhupada used to give sannyas, and everyone, give me sannyas, I want sannyas, not thinking of what is their qualification. So then everyone is, it's just like people come, I want initiation, I'm qualified, yes, people come and they're pushing, and generally whoever pushes, I want initiation, immediately, yes, they're the ones who leave the soonest. So, it's a flowing down process. The mercy flows down. We can't push ourselves up to that.
Although it's clear that Prabhupada never mentioned about his Swarupa, there is some discussions that often goes around.
Yeah, there are discussions. What is Prabhupada's Swarupa? Some say he's a manjari, some say he's a cowherd boy. Prabhupada said, that is not your business. Prithu, Prabhu asked him, Prabhupada very strongly said, that is not your business. You think it would be, but Prabhupada didn't want, he was very strongly against answering that. Why? I don't know. No one would dare to ask him. After that response.
Prabhupada mentions devotee should not even concentrate.
One should not divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. Yeah.
And how to understand that?
How to understand? Just understand it as it is, that's all. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita and elsewhere in Prabhupada's books, It's stated one can worship Sita Ram, Lakshmi Narayana, different forms of Lord. So different instructions may be relevant for different people. That's all. Not every instruction is meant for everyone. According to one's level, according to one's swabhavik ruchi, his natural developed spiritual taste. This is from Baladev Vidyabhushan. He writes like this actually.
Looks like this is more for our own motivation.
Yeah.
And just a few pages before was the purpose of how to say Ramshin Medyan, Lakshmi Narayana, anything. Just before a few pages.
In some place,
And Sanjay himself, he's into the Vishvarup. The one who's explaining this. Sanjaya Vacha Adbhutam Romahashanam Rajan, where's he saying? That wonderful form. Tacha Sansricha Rupam Atyad Bhutam Harim Vismayo Me Mahamrajan Vishami Chapada. Sanjay's taste is for the Vishvarup. Everything's in there. All the forms. Prabhupada wanted people to be Krishna conscious. He installed forms of Sita Ram, also mostly Radha Krishna. He also installed Krishna Balaram. He installed Gaurnitai. He wanted that people somehow take to, in some way or other, take to Krishna consciousness. It wasn't so important to Prabhupada whether you were worshipping Lakshmi Narayana or Radha Krishna. He wanted to see that you were worshipping the Lord. Lots of questions this morning. The Russian devotees are all devotees of Radha Krishna. There's no... they're all in Madhurya Ras.
Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he gives definition of Uttama Bhakti.
Yeah.
And he says it is not contaminated by tendency of jnana and karma. What does it mean about jnana?
What is the tendency of jnana? Jnana, when Rupa Goswami says that Uttama Bhakti is not contaminated, it means not contaminated by the tendency for jnana and karma. Well, here this refers to karma kanda, which leads to material enjoyment, and jnana kanda, which lead the impersonal cultivation of knowledge leading towards the impersonal understanding of the absolute truth. But knowledge of Krishna, cultivating knowledge of Krishna and Krishna consciousness, that's not outside bhakti. And even if we think that, well, we shall cultivate knowledge of Krishna's pastimes, but not the philosophy, that's not Rupa Goswami's line. Rupa Goswami himself wrote philosophical books like Laghu Bhagavatamrita. And we find, just like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is very well known as being a Rasik Acharya. He wrote so many, what you could say, Rasik commentaries. But see his commentaries on the prayers of the personified Vedas. He wrote very intricate philosophical commentaries on that, which people mostly don't know about. So this philosophy is not outside of Krishna consciousness. The philosophy that reveals Krishna is Satchidanandamaya. It's completely transcendental and spiritual and non-different from Krishna. It's not for dry jnanis, it's for ecstatic devotees. Arasagya kak chushe jnana nimba phale. Rasagya kokil kai premamra mukula. Those who have no ras, those who are not aware of ras, they're like crows who suck on the sour neem fruits. Whereas those who are aware of ras, they're like the kokil, the sweet singing bird, who eat the mango buds. So the knowledge of Krishna, knowledge that reveals Krishna, that's not the dry or sour knowledge, or the misinterpretation that everything is all one. No.
What does mean words of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, that price for your love, it is?
Yeah, people asking him to have to get prem. He said you can get for 2 annas in the marketplace. You just go and buy the books Prarthana and Prem Bhakti Chandrika by Narottam Das Thakur. What does it mean? It means if you can actually absorb the mood of Narottam Das in those poems, then that is prem. Another incident from another Babaji, that Vangshidas Babaji, then someone, he was down at the river, down at the Ganga, and someone is singing some songs from Narottam, and Narottam says, he said, well, you're just singing, but you're singing the song very nicely, very sweet tune, but what the words in your mouth and the feeling in the heart are not the same. Easy to sing. And singing, if we sing prayerfully, then we may begin to imbibe that mood. That's why Narottam Das kindly gave us these songs. So, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. You can... One thing, there's all this propaganda, Prabhupada, he wasn't so great and all this, but Prabhupada's delivering many people back to Godhead. Many devotees have left their bodies, and from the circumstances, it appears they've gone back to Godhead by Prabhupada's mercy. So, you can say whatever they like, but Prabhupada delivers the goods. Delivers the goods means he's actually does. He sends people to Krishna. So, others, maybe, I don't know. That book was written by Mula Prakriti Dasi, our family or something like that. What was it called? Srila Prabhupada, a friend to all. Then she was passing away in Vrindavan. And she came to Krishna Balaram temple. And she was big book distributor for many years, and then she and her husband joined Narayan Maharaj's camp. And then when she had to die, she came back to Krishna Balaram temple. And she kept a picture of Prabhupada. And Narayan Maharaj came and said to her, well, you can, she said, I just want to think of Prabhupada now. She said, well, you can think of me also if you like. So I just want to think of Prabhupada. So
I will help you think of it, so I won't lose my bro.
Yeah. So at the end, it might be, at the end, where are you going to put your money? Put it where you're sure. Hare Krishna.